Welcome to the Alchemistik Laboratory. Some of you have asked me to make some tutorials about shaders and textures, so I'm going to start to make a series of tutorials where I'm going to start addressing how to create some materials, but most importantly I want that we all understand how to make these materials. I don't want that we are just connecting nodes to nodes without knowing what this means or what it does. I want that we dive deeply in understanding the process of creating the materials and how we need to think in order to know what to do. So I hope you like this series of tutorials. If you have some suggestions, please leave them in the comments down below. I will gladly check them out. And let's get started with the tutorial. Okay, first things first. This is the model that I'm going to use to texture. So what I'm going to do is change from Eevee to cycles. And I want to have the material visible all the time. And here on the right, I want to have the shader editor. So for this, here in the corner, I'm going to click and drag to create two windows. So basically on the left, I'm going to have my material. And here on the right, if I click here, I'm going to change it to shader editor. And this is the space that I'm going to work in. So what I need to do, we need to create two materials. One material needs to be above the other one. So I will put them like upper material and under material. So let's start with this. So I'm going to create down here in the material editor, I'm going to create new. So now this will be our upper material and I'm going to duplicate it with Shift D and put it down. And this one I'm going to name under material. Now to work in Blender, I really suggest that you have the Node Wrangler plugin installed. So for this, you go to Edit, Preferences. Here you look for Node and then you just install the Node Wrangler. This is very important to have, always. Okay, now that we have our two materials, what I need to do is continue working with my upper material. And I want to make a simple painted material. So I need to have some imperfections and I need to somehow control these imperfections. I would like to make some stains on the object. And to have the control, I would like to have some sort of a contrast on the same stains. And this, I want to connect it to the roughness. The roughness is how shiny the material is. So let's start with this. So many materials in Blender require some sort of noise texture. So for this, we look with Shift A, noise texture. And if we press Ctrl and Shift on this node, we will see what is exactly going on. This is very useful, and this is why we need to have installed the Node Wrangler. So coming back to our noise texture, I want to have a bit more control. So for this, I press Shift A to look for a color ramp. This is one of the most basic ways to have some sort of contrast. Here we see that the blacks, we can make them darker and the whites brighter. So you start to see that we have some sort of interesting results. So we can move a bit these values to have something a bit more interesting, something like this. Now, as we said, we need to connect this to the roughness. So this color ramp, I connect it to the roughness and press Ctrl Shift here to see what is going on. So at the moment it's hard to see because the material is too bright. So I'm going to move this color to a more yellow orange. And you see we can start to have something a bit more interesting if we move this color ramp. So for the moment I will leave it like this. So now what is the next step to do? I would like to have a general bump so that this material doesn't look so perfect smooth because nothing in nature looks really smooth. So for this I need to create a bump map connected to the normal, but I don't have any information. I need to know what I need to connect. So for this, I think it's good if I use the same stains, the same information I have it as a bump map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift A to make a bump and I'm going to connect the stains to the height value. So the stains to the height value and see how it looks. So now you see that we have this sort of information. So what I want to do is to have it like a rough material. And this I'm going to connect to the normal map. So Ctrl Shift to see what is going on. Now it is extremely rough. So I'm going to lower the strength quite a lot. For example, there. The next step to do would be to have a mask that tells us where we want the upper material and where we want the under material. And for this, we need exactly the same thing. We need to have some sort of noise and we need to have control over this noise texture so that we can tell how much or how less we want this mask to affect the upper material. So we can create another noise texture, Ctrl Shift to check it. And I want to have the control. So I'm going to create a color ramp. And this color ramp, I want to have it really, really sharp. So one way to do it would be to put these two colors just next to each other. Or another way would be to have this in constant. Constant is the transition from one color to another is extremely sharp. So I'm going to make something like this. So now you see this information will help me to tell one color, in this case white color will be the upper material and one color would be the under material. So this we can leave it like this, or we can play a bit again with the detail and the roughness of these colors. So if we wanted a peeled material or some sort of a oxidated, rough, grunge transition. So I would leave it like this just to see how it looks. So for example, something like this, I would say. So now we have the mask and to control the mask. But in Blender, it is also important to know how you put the texture. So in this case, we need to know how the material is going to be projected on the object. So for this, we need to look for texture coordinate. And this is going to tell us in what way the texture is going to be put on top of the object. So we can have the one that is on each UV map of the object, if you made a UV map from the object, etc. So in this case, I'm going to leave it in generated because I like somehow this transition on one side. And this will work very different with your model. So be sure to experiment with these values, especially with your own UVs. So now this is what we have. We know how to put the texture, the mask that is going to separate these two materials, and how to control this mask. So now I want to work on my under material. So for this, I'm going to press Ctrl-Shift-Click here. Now I'm watching what is this material looking like. So I want to have it like a very metallic color, maybe a bit purplish and not so rough, something like this. So now this is the under material. I want to have this material to be below the upper. I don't want them to be in the same level. I want that one has a bump information that the material is below it. So for this, I need to have a bump that puts down the second material, the under material, but I need to have the information where I need to have it exactly. Because we already have the information to make the mask material, we can use exactly this value and put it as our bump. So now we connect the bump like this. So this mask, I'm going to craft this one, connect it in a bump, height, and the normal connected to the normal. So this gives us this information of the bump map. Now we're almost finished. Now we just need to connect these two materials and see what is going on. To combine these two shaders, I'm going to look for mixed shader, and I connect shader 1 and shader 2. Now this shader is mixing them equally. So we need to have information to know, just like in the bump map, to have the same information to mix them together. So for this, we need to have our control, our mask, to connect it to this node, like this. I'm going to press Ctrl-Shift-Click here. Then I'm going to grab this color and put it in this node here. And now we have exactly what we wanted. One material is above and one material is below. In this case, it's the other way around. So our bump map, I'm going to click on invert. And now it is much more visible that the yellow material is above the shiny metal. And here, this is how we control how much the yellow painting is going to fade away or be present. We can grab the slider and you will see how it is coming and peeling away the painting until it's fully gone. And there we have it. We have our material. This is one of the very basic materials we can do in Blender. But as you see, this teaches us a lot how to combine or how to make our own shaders. I'm going to start making different kinds of materials in this series of tutorials. So each material will have its own properties, and sometimes you will see that the materials will start to become more and more complex. But I will try to explain them as easy as possible, and I will try to explain you the basics so that we can understand exactly what we are going to do and how we need to think in creating materials. If you like this tutorial, please like, share, and subscribe. And you can also tell me your own ideas of what kind of materials you want me to address or explain. And we can say now ex luto ad aurem. Until next time, thank you.